So here's a question now, and this is a legit question, and I think it's something that we could probably interrogate over multiple weeks, and we might actually land someplace today, and then next week land someplace else. As we look to the midterms, we know that we need to motivate and activate the base, but we also need to hold on and win in moderate districts. So I mean, and so you realize that the base is the base. You can't ignore the base. But is the base the reason why we currently have the majority? Or is it the moderates? We have the majority because of Lauren Underwoods of the world, right? We have the majority because we're winning in districts. So what is that? And that's why I said it's probably something that will be very manic depressive or bipolar in that we may change our position week to week as individuals. But what is, you know, from today, what would be your strategy going forward? Are you rallying the base? And then you probably can do both, but if you had to say, where should our party be? Rallying the base or understanding that moderate voter?
I would have had a different answer in 2018, but my answer today, and I think moving forward, is always rallying the base. And here's why. Because I'm starting to get really a great sense of belief in this system of what they call negative bipartisanship, which is put up your candidate that people are going to show up for, not necessarily put up a candidate that you would get as many people as you possibly can. Does that make sense? So, like, I'd rather have the people who are definitely going to vote for us show up as opposed to try to siphon off votes who might swing the other way. And I think that was the polarization of Donald Trump, right? He made it so you have to have an opinion. He made it so people who didn't usually show up show up. And what Republicans are banking on is that Democrats are always quiet in the midterms. That we weren't in 2018 because of what was on the ballot, and that was Trump. And we wanted to show up to stop that. He's not on the ballot now, and I think the Republicans are banking on that. So I always will believe in rallying the base because I'm actually done trying to siphon off voters who voted for him twice. I'd much rather get that 18-year-old or that 20-year-old who didn't vote in 2020. I'd much rather have them show up because I know they're definitely going to vote for
You
me.
know,
Does that make
and
sense?
and here's this is why I said we keep going back and forth and maybe changes. So I agree with that, but then the next question would be is, um, can we acknowledge though that uh, a Democratic based voter is a very local thing? So, for instance, a Democratic base in the Chicago metro area might be completely different than, say, a Democratic base in Pennsylvania running for Senate, right? The Democratic base in Ohio for Senate is so. Do we have to acknowledge though when we say the base is also relative to the race at hand, not necessarily to the national scope, or do you agree or disagree? Is what I'm saying in that regard.
I agree, but I think it won't. I won't. It won't be that in this next few elections. So I think the base is going to shift. We're getting to the point where it's now either you want decency and you want progress, or you want to stop and you want the country to go backwards. I guess my question is, the base will become more solidified against what we're facing than it has before. So what I'm saying is the Pennsylvania Democrat and the Chicago Democrat might be more in tune than they have been in the past.
Well, but so look right now. So, uh, uh, what's his name? What's Ryan's in Ohio Senator? I wanted to say Tim Ryan is the former Speaker of the
Tim
House.
Ryan, yeah.
Is it Tim Ryan who's the congressperson from Ohio?
I'm sure there's a few.
Yeah. So let me look it up real quick so I get
Okay.
it right here because I don't want to get it wrong. But Ryan, let's see here, Congressman Ryan. Yeah, Tim Ryan. So Tim Ryan is more of a moderate centrist Dem, who is kind of the front runner in Ohio. Morgan Harper, who is a Justice Democrat who ran against Joyce Beatty in Columbus, she's just announced her announced her run for Senate in Ohio. Um, Technically, by most standards, she's more in line with the Democratic base. She doesn't have a chance statewide. So that's what I'm trying to say. Same with Malcolm Kenyatta versus Conor Lamb, right? In Pennsylvania. I think Malcolm Kenyatta and Morgan Harper are base candidates, but that's base candidates if you're talking about a deep red or blue seat in the House. They're not even base candidates in California statewide, or they're not base candidates in Illinois statewide. They're not base candidates in New York statewide. That's what I'm trying to say is, I do think that you run to the base, but I do think that we have probably a lot more conscious of um, how the base is a very nuanced group at this point. Is what I'm saying.
No, I agree with you. What I'm saying is, I think, right, you have, let's just use an example. You have the far left, which is, or like as left you go, it becomes more blue, and as right you go, it becomes more red, right? And in the middle is purple. What my theory and what I believe will happen is the purple will shrink. That more people will be blue or red than ever before. They're going to just take a stance and they're just going to go that way. There isn't that voter anymore that's swinging back and forth, as they call them, the Obama to Trump voter. Like, I think that's going to be less and less and less. So I think I agree with your position. Yeah, I think the difference between Tim and I think Morgan, if I'm not mistaken, you said her name was. I think Morgan might fit more into the local race, but Tim does better on the statewide. But I think that gap shrinks more than it ever has been. I'm sure it still exists, and I'm sure it might normalize. But I just think for at least 2022, 2024, I don't think it's gonna. I just think it's gonna be more of a black and white line there.
Right. So I guess what you're saying is, you're saying that there's going to be a Democratic base and a Republican base, but the Democratic base is less about ideology, more about winning blue or red. But then they're going to say, in this state, to be the blue candidate, this is the profile that you have to fit, right? In this particular state or this particular district, that's what a base person is. So base is more less ideology, is what you're saying, right? More a loyal Democratic voter versus a loyal Republican voter. Is that where you're going with that?
Yes. Yeah. I'm saying it's going to go away from ideology and it's going to become moral. It's going to become all the Republicans now, in at least these next two elections, in 2022, 2024, Republicans have to go full MAGA or they're not going to win and for their base. So it's them versus everybody else. It just becomes a moral thing of, do you want your state to be run by an anti-mask, anti-vax, anti-women, anti-all this? And I think more people are going to not look at defund the police or look at raising the taxes or not raising the taxes. I think it's just going to become moral. And I think that's what you'll see, at least in 2022, 2024.